Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report, powered by enca.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Yesterday was a madness in both the ad hoc committee, as Senzo Mchunu was absolutely roasted by MPs, exposed for probably lying. He retracted his claims about President Ramaphosa being in agreement and supportive of him disbanding the PKTT. There was a wrestling match between him and Julius Malema, who's really having a moment right now. And across at the Madlanga Commission, we heard more from Witness A about all of the different ways that different members of the police, according to Witness A, were suspiciously getting involved in and arguably meddling in the arrest of KT Molefe. A lot of new names came up, but Witness A also spoke directly about somebody called Gen Mkhwanazi. He then connected with Julius Malema and then connected Julius Malema with none other than Shadrack Sibiya. So there's a lot to cover today. We're going to try and cover all of it. You're on the Quarter Report. And just a few quick clarifiers for those of you who only watch on YouTube. One, James is my brother by blood. So if you don't watch the full show on enca.com, which you should do, the link is in the description if you want to watch the full show if you're watching on YouTube. Also give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube if you're on YouTube. You should know that James is genuinely my brother in blood, not by choice. I know, relax. I would choose you. I hope you feel chosen.
That is the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
I know, don't wear it out. The second thing is something odd that people have. I just realized that we make so many shows that sometimes people don't get the law. The reason why we say settle down, brother, at the beginning of the show is because it's something I said on that viral Piers Morgan interview that also, it turns out, is something that people love to hear to start the show.
What is really nice is people have now reinterpreted settle down, brother, as they are settling down to watch the beginning of the show.
Yeah, like we're strapping in.
Which I think is really nice.
Yeah, that is cool. And then the final thing, obviously, 3beaniesnetwork.com to get some merchandise. But we're going to start with Senzo Mchunu. So Senzo Mchunu returned to the ad hoc committee yesterday. Remember our show last week, or our couple of shows last week, where Senzo Mchunu said that he experienced General Mkhwanazi saying on a secret recording of Mkhwanazi speaking to the chief of staff of Senzo Mchunu, Shadrack and Kabinde, Mchunu claimed that they had a recording of General Mkhwanazi saying that Mchunu better not have any skeletons in his closet, that he better be completely clean if he was going to go after the political killings task team. And then they played out the clip from this secret recording, and Mkhwanazi didn't say that on the recording, and Mchunu said they played the wrong part, and that next week, that means this week, Mchunu would come back with the right part, and they played out to the ad hoc committee in Parliament. Mchunu also said last week that Ramaphosa was in agreement with him on his analysis of the PKTT and disbanding it, but then there was pushback from that when Mchunu was forced to admit that actually, as far as he could remember, it was an extremely short briefing, not a dialogue or a discussion back and forth, and so it was hard to understand what he meant by saying Ramaphosa agreed with him on what exactly, disbanding the PKTT, the reasons within the PKTT, what exactly did Ramaphosa tell him that he experienced as agreement, on what exactly? Those were the two big claims. And then Mchunu came before the ad hoc committee yesterday, a combination of evidence leader Norman Arendse and MPs. And let's just say, man backtracked a whole lot. Man learned how to walk backwards, and man, he basically ran backwards. Okay, so let's start with, for me, what is the biggest one. Senzo Mchunu fully went back on his claim that Cyril Ramaphosa had agreed with him on disbanding the PKTT. There's an article written in City Press today from, who's the journalist? Let's credit the journalist quickly, from Vusuthando Percival Dube, that starts and ends with Mchunu's exact quotes that I found to be super illuminating. So the article starts, testifying before an inquiry into the controversial dissolution of the PKTT on Tuesday, Mchunu also revealed that President Ramaphosa, quote, was not consulted, informed, or briefed ahead of the decision to disband the elite police structure, a move that has triggered intense political and public scrutiny. So, Senzo, if I may address you by your birth first name, your given name, I don't know whether or not you watch this show, why didn't you say this last week? Last week when you said that Ramaphosa, quote, agreed with you on your analysis and your basically evaluation of the PKTT, and you left enough room to imply that Ramaphosa agreed with you on disbanding the PKTT. Why did you not then, under further examination, not tell us what you told us yesterday, which was, quote, Ramaphosa was not consulted, informed, or briefed ahead of the decision to disband the elite police structure, the PKTT. And then the last quote, the other quote that this journalist put forward that I thought was really helpful, once again, credit to Vusutando Percival Dube from City Press. While Mchunu maintains he acted within his ministerial mandate, his disclosure that Ramaphosa was never briefed could have wider implications for accountability at the highest levels of government, especially after last week he told Parliament, quote, the president was briefed and agreed with the decision to disband the PKTT. So last week, the president was briefed and agreed with the decision to disband the PKTT. This week, apparently, quote, he was not, the president, consulted, informed, or briefed. You know what this makes me think? That Senzo Mchunu came to the ad hoc committee last week with a bunch of claims that he hoped he would get away with without further scrutiny that would make him look good. One of them being that Ramaphosa agreed with him. And then under further scrutiny, when that rapidly fell apart, he had to come this week and say something completely different that contradicted what he said last week, that he was trying something last week. And, or, you know what this makes me think? This makes me think that over the weekend, Senzo Mchunu may have got a few phone calls from people in the presidency to say, what you implied at Madlanga last week, the president isn't happy with that, either because he's just not happy that that was told, or that he's not happy because the president feels that Mchunu lied. Because the weekend is a long time. It's plenty of minutes for a little phone call between the camps of two serious allies within the ANC. Remember, Senzo Mchunu was a key part of getting Ramaphosa elected and dethroning Jacob Zuma. So that's the first big claim. The second big claim is that Mchunu came to Parliament this week and admitted that he actually didn't have a clip of General Mkhwanazi saying to Shadrack Nkabinde's chief of staff that, quote, there was this threatening line about Mchunu must be completely clean if he's going to come for the PKTT. Mchunu insisted last week that they had that quote, that they had that recording, and it just wasn't played and be played this week. Well, this week, apparently he didn't have it. Didn't have it at all. And Julius Malema, in particular, did a really good job of grilling him to say, what do you mean? You said you didn't have it. Now we have to presume it doesn't exist. Sorry, you said you had it, but we didn't play it. Didn't play the right parts. Now you come and you say you don't have it. So we must presume that that actually doesn't exist. And again, did Mchunu say that last week, that they had that line recorded in the hope that nobody would follow up on that and say, no, we really want to hear it? If that's the case, unbelievably bad strategy, right? Because for me, self-evident, you shouldn't take that risk. It was obvious that people were going to follow up on that. But then the second thing that comes to my mind, which James, you mentioned to me this morning, is maybe Mchunu never listened to the recording and was just briefed by people to try and make that attempt, his team of strategists. And if that's true, then Mchunu is at the very least overly trusting a team of his who is lying to him, or is in on the lie and knew that that recording never existed and decided to hope that nobody would follow up on that when he tried to make that spin. Both of those look really bad. Under cross-examination yesterday, Mchunu also insisted that he believes that the Constitution does afford the police minister powers to disband the PKTT. Petronella van Rooyen, the head of SAPS Legal, was very clear nearly a month ago now at Madlanga, or maybe a month ago now at Madlanga, that that's not the case. A lot of other people, in fact, I don't think anybody except Senzo Mchunu thinks that the police minister has the power. Remember, so Petronella van Rooyen was great. She said, great in terms of, she was very clear. She was like, police minister has governance over policy, not operations. Disbanding a task team is operations, it's not policy.
I love the idea that there's all these people, all of these opinions, and they all have sort of generally come to the same conclusion that he was out of bounds doing it, and also not talking to anyone about it, which we will get onto now, including them.
Bit choked up about this.
I'm getting very emotional about how you didn't ask Ramaphosa. And Mchunu, after all of that, can you just come out and be like, no, I think I'm fine. I think I'm good. Don't worry about it. I think I'm good. The legal experts, You don't need to worry about their opinion. My opinion is that it was fine for me to do this.
Okay, other things Mkhwanazi was cross-examined about. Well, he spoke a lot about Brown Mogotsi. He spoke a lot about Cat Matlala. He said that he doesn't know Cat Matlala. He was weird in the way he explained it. He was like, I've never met Cat Matlala alone. I've also never met him with other people. I've also never met him with Brown Mogotsi. I've also never seen him with the naked eye. Bro, you could have just said you've never met him. Like, why did you go by himself and with Brown Mogotsi and with other people who are not Brown Mogotsi and when I'm not wearing sunglasses? So what he tried to say, Senzo Mchunu, because remember, last week, suddenly out of nowhere, Cat Matlala in jail right now, awaiting a verdict in his trial. Cat Matlala in jail submitted an affidavit, a sworn affidavit saying that he was offended by Mkhwanazi's claims about him and Senzo Mchunu, and he never met Mchunu and never asked anything of him and didn't know him. And so Julius Malema said, wow, this is weird because the timing is weird, right? Like, these allegations have been out for months since that July 6th press conference by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, General Mkhwanazi, and not up until this whole point did Cat Matlala feel like it was within his best interests to put out a sworn affidavit saying that he didn't know Police Minister Senzo Mchunu until just the moment when Senzo Mchunu could really use an affidavit in the ad hoc committee to be like, look, even Cat Matlala says we don't know each other. The timing is unbelievably sus. And to quote once again that line from Parks and Recreation, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious. Like, it's unbelievably suspicious that on the Friday, just after it looks like things are not going so well for Senzo Mchunu in ad hoc, suddenly, from the Thursday, suddenly Cat Matlala submits a sworn affidavit to be like, I don't know him. And then Senzo in the ad hoc committee on Tuesday says, yeah, you see, I have a sworn affidavit. We don't know each other. Pinky swear. Then let's talk about Brown Mogotsi. So Senzo Mchunu has had a lot to answer for because remember, Brown Mogotsi, we have all the evidence from Cat Matlala's phone of Brown Mogotsi texting back and forth with Cat Matlala about Brown Mogotsi speaking with the police minister, about the police minister needing this stuff done, about Cat Matlala putting this money in this place to help the police minister, or at least ANC events involving the police minister, Senzo Mchunu. Remember also in those texts that were found on Cat Matlala's phone, Cat Matlala was sent... Brown Mogotsi sent Cat Matlala screenshots of Brown Mogotsi sending the police minister messages on the Signal app, which, for those of you who don't know, is basically WhatsApp, but with extremely much more significant encryption. So the kind of app you would use if you really don't want people to find out the messages that you're sending. And Senzo Mchunu said, no, I've known Brown Mogotsi in a distant and professional capacity since something like 2017. And he said that Brown Mogotsi texts him sometimes, but that, he often receives texts from people, looks at them and goes, I don't really know what that means, and doesn't respond. So basically saying, yeah, Brown DMs me sometimes. Once again, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Brown texts me sometimes, but I don't look at I don't respond to those DMs. I don't even know what they mean. I just ignore them, which again is hella interesting because remember, from what we know so far, from Brown Mogotsi sending screenshots of his messages to Mchunu, to Cat Matlala from Cat Matlala's cell phone, so far, no WhatsApps have come out showing Mchunu responding to Brown Mogotsi, right? And so that works really well. If from the perspective of you're going, let's look at the evidence that's been released and then tailor our version of events. Okay, so that's everything that happened at ad hoc yesterday. Now let's talk about the continuing testimony from Witness A at Madlanga. Yesterday's show, we really dug into what Witness A said about the investigation into the murder of Armand Swart, and it went further in Witness A's latest testimony. So let's get into it. And he said a lot of things, but let's focus specifically on what happened when the police went to arrest KT Molefe. Because a lot happened, and a lot of it involves and connects police in different parts of the police force. Once again, going to the wonderful Pulele Tswiti-Jones, ENCA's reporter at Madlanga, who's doing an incredible job at the moment. Okay, so Witness A was in charge of the operation to arrest KT Molefe. By the way, somebody sent me a message on Instagram yesterday and said they thought this whole time that KT Molefe was Katie, like Katie, like a woman's name, like Catherine. Yeah, or like, yeah, exactly. Kate and Molefe. No, it's Katiso, which is K KT Molefe. And witness B, who's speaking today at Madlanga, was part of the operation to arrest Lucky Molefe. Lucky Molefe is KT Molefe's nephew. More on Lucky Molefe in a second, who, by the way, has not been arrested yet because they haven't been able to find Lucky Molefe, KT Molefe's nephew. But more on that in a second. Let's work through what witness A said in the order that witness A said it. So they rocked up to KT Molefe's home. They told KT Molefe that they were the police, and they asked that he opened up. Apparently, KT Molefe was armed when the team rocked up to arrest Molefe. They produced the warrants to assure Molefe that the warrants were real. Molefe knew that they were the police, and he cooperated and didn't give any problems. Okay, so when they were searching KT Molefe's house, guess what they found? Transnet tender documents in KT Molefe's house. And guess who worked for Transnet? Witness A says, Lucky Molefe, KT Molefe's nephew. And apparently, Lucky was responsible for buying products for Transnet. Now, you might remember that QTech, the company that had a contract to provide products for Transnet, reported, a whistleblower in QTech reported that some products being sold to Transnet were being inflated such that Transnet was paying way more than they should have for those products. So, witness A says, when the police asked about the documents, KT Molefe said that the documents belonged to Lucky Molefe, his nephew, and his son, and a particular form that they found had signatures. They had signatures on them, and the police confiscated him. But then during the arrest, things started to get really weird, said witness A. Apparently, while they were inside Molefe's house and going through all the stuff, they got information from people outside that people from the Hawks wanted to come into the house and find out what was happening. Why suddenly would the Hawks arrive? Because why would the Hawks meddle? Witness A said it was not a usual thing or a normal thing to have members of the DPCI, which is the Hawks, interfering in their work and wanting to know why a warrant for arrest and search and seizure of a house was happening. But then witness A said that he had been told by Richard Shabiri, head of Organized Crime Investigations Unit, who we spoke about yesterday, that one or two members of the Hawks had active interests in the Armand Swart murder investigation, and a member of the Hawks had correspondence with Cat Matlala found on Cat Matlala's confiscated phone. See how all of these things are starting to connect and why we think this murder case might be the one that brings down a whole lot of people. Then things got really, really weird. And I know we always say South Africa is a movie. Witness A said that after that, while they were arresting KT Molefe and going through his house, a helicopter out of nowhere came and started flying low over KT Molefe's house. A helicopter just appeared and started flying low over KT Molefe's house for about 10 minutes. Witness A didn't know why the helicopter was there. Witness A didn't understand who the helicopter was working for. And Witness A said they asked for reinforcements after seeing the helicopter. And the person flying the helicopter, according to Witness A, was identified as somebody called Inspector General George Raftopoulos from the Gauteng Traffic Police. And Raftopoulos says he was requested by a certain colonel from the Hawks who told him there was a bogus police at Molefe's house. So Raftopoulos was told, go and put your helicopter over there because the Hawks believe that this was a bogus fake police going to arrest KT Molefe and go through his stuff. All of this was happening while they were arresting KT Molefe and going through his house and finding these Transnet documents and understanding about his nephew and his son, Lucky. Do you know how weird this is? Somebody's being arrested, there's a warrant out for their arrest, and all of these other members of the security services are arriving to meddle and try and stop this from happening, allegedly. If what KT Molefe says is true. And then witness A said that he was told by someone after they'd arrested KT Molefe, he was told by someone, the person, meaning KT Molefe, you've just arrested is a person of the generals. Is a person of the generals. So witness A says that they can't identify this individual. They cannot be mentioned. But This individual, according to Witness A, told him that you are messing with someone who is well connected, who's part of the circle of all the generals. That's the high ups. That could be Shadrack Sibiya, who's a general. It could be all these other generals within the Hawks. It's all of the elites at the very, very, very top. So then Witness A said that there was this warrant of arrest. There is this warrant of arrest out for KT Molefe, and they can't find him. And by the way, KT Molefe has just been given bail for 400,000 rand, but bail. And they gave him bail even though his nephew cannot be found, despite the fact that there's a warrant of arrest out against him. Extraordinary decisions being made all over the place. Then Witness A said that somebody told him, another colonel, that General Shadrack Sibiya, currently this is on suspension, National Deputy Commissioner, wanted to know what Molefe was being arrested for. Witness A alleged that Sibiya was not happy about the whole Molefe situation. Once again, why on earth was General Sibiya getting involved and putting pressure through this Colonel Mokoena, if what Witness A says is true, involving KT Molefe? And you will remember General Mkhwanazi, amongst others, talking about the alarmingly close relationship with General Shadrack Sibiya, between General Shadrack Sibiya and people like Cat Matlala and KT Molefe and other alleged underworld crime lords. And here's the last really big thing that Witness A said. Witness A alleged that Major General Richard Shibiri told him that Molefe was part of a group of 5 individuals in the Northwest with mining interests in that province. And Witness A said one of the people is Nxumalo, an entrepreneur who Witness A alleged is a close associate of Julius Malema, who is in turn a close associate of General Shadrack Sibiya. So Witness A, it seems, showing the connections, the personal relationship connections between KT Molefe, Nxumalo, and Shadrack Sibiya via Julius Malema. And now we need to actually loop back to what Julius Malema just so happened to say in the ad hoc committee yesterday while the Madlanga Commission was going on. He was talking about Senzo Mchunu being close with a variety of different people. And he was talking about the difference between people you have on your phone who you text sometimes and people who are comrades or associates or close friends. And Julius Malema just happened to say that he does have General Shadrack Sibiya's number and texts him sometimes and has texted him sometimes about police matters. But that doesn't necessarily make him a close friend or someone who he rarely knows. Witness A claimed that actually Julius Malema is close with General Shadrack Sibiya and with the entrepreneur Nxumalo, and Nxumalo has got the same mining interests as KT Molefe and 3 others. And that's how these are all connected.